Hi folks, hope you're doing well. So a question that came to me earlier. Why, all those years ago, would I have asked God to shake me, break me and make me? Oof. Because understanding what that is. I mean, the picture that God gave me years ago was of like a, and I've shared this on this channel before, it was like a really, really bad garden that hadn't been taken care of for years. There'd be tyres, in the soil, under the soil. There'd be bricks and all that sort of crap. But the shaking is exposing. You could say exposing, cutting down the brush, so you can actually get to the point where you can dig. So there may be a certain amount of digging involved in the shaking part. And the shaking would have started more or less straight away. Because, there were a lot of events that happened. And actually, I've been broken 3 times. So, since then. So, there's been a lot to sort out. And, now, God made me who I am. I said before, I had an older brother, younger sister, and I was the only one put into care. Going through all that system, and having what happens when you're in that system, going through the things that you go through. Coming through that as an adult, young adult, having negative being spoken into me all the time. So, But then I suppose it is a case that, once I realise that God loves me, then it's like, okay. For me, giving my life to God meant something. It wasn't, this is the thing I'm doing now. I never became churchy because more or less immediately, church irritated me. The first church I was in was, they used a school hall. And it was pitiful. To say that it's pitiful. They did the best they could with what they had. Yeah, you could say that. I mean, personally, if I could go back there and advise those people, I would have said, look, go and join that church that actually has a church building, and make a fellowship where you join together. Because the problem is that then was the case. I think they identified as evangelical, which means that they couldn't have joined with a Baptist church or even a charismatic church or a Pentecostal church because they were evangelical. And they could only be joined with an evangelical sort of church, which is stupidity, really. So I was never churchy, never. Especially the songs. I hated the songs. They were typical songs that you would find in churches in the early 90s, and there was no life to them. Those songs, there was no life at all. They were just churchy songs, catchy, but didn't really say anything, didn't really mean anything. And again, the ministry was okay, but was it ever challenging? Was it ever going to be something which would get you right? No. But But then after a few years, I ended up in a church called King's Church, which I've mentioned many, many times, in Chatham in Kent. And that church, we had visiting speakers, one of which was Rick Godwin. And I liked Rick Godwin a lot. When he spoke, it was challenging. He would say things like, Christ is not coming back for a prostitute bride, a church that's in bed with the world. And that was challenging. Very. That was quite aggressive for preaching. But I liked it because it was real. He wasn't talking up most preachers as if we were so close to perfection already, we didn't really need to do anything. And so, I like that. So, I then started writing something called Avoid the Crash. Talking about the fact that aircraft go through a massive amount of servicing to make sure that aircraft is suitable and safe to fly. But we don't really ever service our lives at all. And our mental health, our emotional state, we don't service any of that in any way, shape or form. I mean, nowadays a lot of people do go to doctors and do go to psychiatrists. You don't need a psychiatrist, you need to go to God. But you need to service all of that sort of stuff. But basically saying, look, if we don't service that sort of stuff, before we were Christians, we had ways of thinking that when we then become a Christian, the devil wants to use that stuff to cause us to crash. Because what better way to make us useless? Or better ways to make us think we're useless, but to cause us to crash in a horrendous way in our life. That ends up with losing your job or your marriage or even being in prison. So of course, writing that, and then that's when I moved to the YMCA, where again I could see the reality. And this picture, this is supposed to be a young man's Christian association, and yet there doesn't seem to be much in the way of Christian here. And so that was challenging me. So eventually I suggested that they have a meeting once a week there. I wasn't there as staff, I was there as a resident. But I suggested that they have a meeting once a week where people can just ask anything they want about God. And I was blessed years later when I went to visit, and they were still having that meeting, which was good. But and then around the same time there was that lady who had all the horrendous things happening to her, and she asked me to pray for her, and God delivered her completely, absolutely completely, in about 20 minutes. All of that nastiness gone. That drug addiction gone. That pain in her life gone. And I still looked at my life and I saw, I don't like it. It's not right. I think just before I went to the YMCA, I'd had the vision of the disabled man who was then healed, and God said, "This is my church. And the disabilities are down to this, and this." And then while at the YMCA, God gave me the dream of seeing his people being led away to their deaths. And I knew that I wasn't the person that I needed to be. And I couldn't rely upon any church helping me to get there, because by that point I'd already been a Christian for around about 6 years. 5-6 years. Been in different type of churches. And yeah, no. In King's Church, the King's Church just got too big. They had too many pastors. It was all about being the biggest church rather than being the best. Rather than being, the church that's going to help people to walk. So I knew that I couldn't rely upon what was there, that something extreme had to happen. And I suppose I must have been talking to God about that sort of thing before this person came and asked me to write some songs for him. Because Shake Me, Break Me, Make Me was one of the songs. But all the way through the years, as God has been breaking me anyway, without me being aware, as I say, 3 massive breaks. I've been asking him to shake me, break me and make me all the way through those years anyway. Not realising he was already doing it. So I'm not a super Christian or anything like that. Yeah. For some reason I've been made the way I have. Well, actually, I go back years ago, and I was in a children's home called Gatland House then, in Gatland Lane in Maidstone in Kent, and I was actually trying to help people then and trying to counsel them, trying to help them to deal with the issues in their life. That's always been a thing, but I mean, with regards to certainly the church and helping the church, the problem is that I knew that I wasn't the right person. I needed a God to deal with me and to deal with the issues in me. To help me to be the person that he can use to be a difference. Because, wanting to help people in a children's home, wanting to free one woman from horrendous stuff, then writing something called Avoid the Crash. There was a pattern, I suppose, that was there. And so, I suppose I just realised that I'm never going to get to that as I am. And that the greatest threat to me ruining that is me. And so it had to be something extreme. It had to be something radical. Of course, shake me, break me, make me would rhyme in a song. But then, as I say, years later, I think around about 2004, Audio Adeline had a song that's very, very similar. Pierced, it's called. Pierced. Where they have a similar lyric in the chorus. So, even while listening to that song and worshipping with that song, of course, that brought back the Shake Me, Break Me, Make Me. And so, that got me even refocused at that point to keep pushing on with that, because yeah, well, I've said recently, am I that person yet that God can use? Not yet. No. However, last night I believe I heard from God, and that God said that the breaking part is done, and now it's simply making, and that's cool. Well, there's been 3 major breaks and lots of breaks in between. So yeah, 3 major breaks. Yeah, that's a lot. So yeah, if that's the end of that, that's Christy. But actually, it's quite interesting. It was so there was a 9-year gap between the first one and the second one, then an 8-year gap. So yeah, the last one was 2021. So I'm thinking, so in 5 years' time. But I think God said no. All of the breaking has happened now. So yeah. Well, I was talking to a friend last night, even about the point of the dogs, and saying, yeah, the plan was to have, yeah, one of Molly's last litter, and Amber's last litter, and then Gracie's last litter, and get a boy that's unrelated. So in the future, when they are going to die, I have their grandpuppies, because I knew it would be horrendous to lose them, because they were my family, the only family I've ever had. And yet now I know that Bambini, I love Bambini, he's a wonderful boy, but when he passes, even though that would be painful, it won't be anywhere near as painful as I imagined it would be for Molly, Chewy, Lucy, Amber, Riley, Mickey, Covey, Lockie, Terry, Jacob. Yeah. Because God has dealt with that. And so, yeah. The making is on the way. And as I say, I've noticed quite a difference already. So, yeah. But there's still so much difference that still needs to be done. And that's the point. Certainly for me, I don't think I will ever get to the point where enough is done. Yeah, there will always be things that need to be sorted out. Yeah, there could always be better. However, that's not a case of just beating yourself up. I'm not going to do that. Yeah, if I fail, I fail. Okay. That's all part of being human. It is. Yeah, even if we get to be of heaven and bringing heaven down, we are still human, and so therefore failure is part of being human. So if you fail sometimes, okay. That's just a reminder that we are still, human, and we're still in this earth, walking it out. So we are going to make mistakes sometimes. We are going to do things wrong sometimes. But that's why we can't judge others. Because things like that are going to be reminders that we are not perfect. That only one was perfect. But that one isn't us. So that's good. Anyway, there you go. You take care. God bless. I'll speak to you soon. Be a blessing. Be blessed. Bye-bye.